The stars had always been silent, until they weren't. Dr. Sarah Chen stood in the observation deck of Luna Station, watching the blinking lights of human ships moving between Earth and Mars. It was a normal Tuesday in 2157. Cargo vessels carried supplies to the growing colonies. Military ships patrolled the outer edges of human space. Everything was peaceful. Then the sensors started screaming. "Contact! Multiple contacts!" shouted Lieutenant Rodriguez from the communications station. 12. No. 20. God, there's hundreds of them. Sarah ran to the main screen. What she saw made her stomach drop. Ships were appearing out of nowhere. Not human ships. These vessels were massive, shaped like curved blades and covered in strange symbols that hurt to look at. Admiral Marcus Webb arrived on the bridge within minutes. His gray hair was messy from sleep, but his eyes were sharp and alert. "Report," he ordered. "Sir, we count at least 800 unknown vessels. They appeared simultaneously across all outer colonies. No engine signatures, no warning. They just materialized." Webb nodded grimly. "Any communication attempts?" "Yes, sir. We've sent standard first contact protocols in 12 languages plus mathematical sequences." No response yet. Sarah watched the alien ships on screen. They moved in perfect formation, like a school of fish or a flock of birds. But these were machines of war. Even she could see that. "Sir," Rodriguez called out. "We're receiving a transmission." The main screen flickered. A face appeared that made everyone on the bridge step back. The creature had 4 eyes arranged in a diamond pattern. Its skin was purple and scaled like a reptile. 2 sets of arms moved as it spoke. "Primitive mammals of the 3rd planet," the alien said. Its voice was cold and filled with amusement. "I am Admiral Kethvar of the Vortok Empire. Speaking for the Galactic Confederation, you will surrender your colonies and submit to Confederation law within 1 rotation of your star. Refuse and face extinction." The transmission showed other aliens laughing in the background. Different species, but all of them treating humans like children who had wandered into adult business. "Your species is young and weak," Kethvar continued. "The Confederation has ruled the galaxy for 3,000 years. We have destroyed civilizations that make your entire species look like insects. Surrender now, and some of you may survive as servants." The transmission ended with more alien laughter. The bridge was silent for a long moment. Sarah felt anger burning in her chest. These creatures had appeared in human space without warning, demanded surrender, and acted like it was all a joke. Admiral Webb's face was calm, but Sarah could see the steel in his eyes. "Rodriguez, open a channel to the alien fleet." "Channel open, sir." Webb stood straight and looked directly into the camera. "This is Admiral Marcus Webb of the Human Defense Force, speaking for Earth and all human colonies. We received your generous offer of subjugation." He paused, and Sarah saw the smallest smile touch his lips. "Humanity respectfully declines." And Sarah was already moving to her laboratory. As the base's lead xenobiologist, she needed to analyze everything they had learned from that brief contact. The alien technology, their biology, their behavior patterns. If war was coming, humanity needed every advantage they could get. Her computer systems worked frantically to process the data. What she found made her blood run cold. Every alien species in that transmission shared similar traits. Heavy bone structure suggesting high-gravity worlds. Efficient metabolisms indicating resource-rich environments. Body language that spoke of creatures who had never known true scarcity or desperation. Sarah pulled up Earth's evolutionary history. Humans had evolved on a death world. Ice ages, volcanic eruptions, asteroid impacts, plagues, predators. Competition for limited resources. Every major extinction event had only made the survivors stronger and more adaptable. These aliens came from paradise worlds. They had evolved in comfort and plenty. Their technology was impressive, but it was the technology of specialists. Each species had developed along narrow, efficient paths. Humans were different. Humans were generalists. Persistence hunters who could outlast prey 10 times their size. Tool makers who could turn anything into a weapon. Survivors who had clawed their way to the top of the food chain on a planet that kept trying to kill them. Dr. Chen to Admiral Webb, she called over the comm. Go ahead, Doctor. Sir, I need to speak with you immediately. I've found something important about our visitors. Minutes later, Webb stood in her lab, studying her findings. Explain it in simple terms, Doctor. They're powerful, but they're not flexible, Sarah said. Look at this data. Every Confederation species follows predictable patterns. They've conquered other civilizations through overwhelming technological advantage. But every species they've faced has been similar to them, specialized, efficient, predictable. And we're not predictable? Sarah shook her head. Sir, humans are the galaxy's ultimate adaptation specialists. We don't just use tools. We are tools. Every human carries the genetic memory of 100,000 generations of survivors. When we're pushed to the edge, we don't break. We evolve. Webb was quiet for a moment. Doctor, do you think we can win this war? I think they have no idea what they've just declared war on, Sarah replied. Over the next few hours, reports came in from across human space. The alien fleets had surrounded every human colony. No shots fired yet, but the message was clear. Surrender or die. But something else was happening. Something the aliens didn't expect. For the first time in human history, every nation, every corporation, every colony was united. The Global Defense Coalition formed within hours. Ancient enemies became allies. Corporate rivals shared their technology freely. Military commanders who had been preparing for human wars suddenly found themselves planning for something much bigger. Sarah watched the news feeds from her lab. Children were being evacuated from frontier worlds. Factories were retooling to produce weapons and ships. Scientists were sharing research across all barriers. Admiral Webb appeared on every human communication channel. His message was simple. Humanity has survived ice ages, plagues, wars, and disasters that would have destroyed weaker species. We will not be the first generation to break that chain. We fight not just for ourselves, but for every human child who deserves to see the stars. The aliens had made their first mistake. They thought they were fighting a primitive species that would surrender when faced with superior technology. They were actually fighting the one species in the galaxy that had spent 200,000 years learning that surrender was not an option. The war was about to begin. The first battle lasted 6 minutes. Captain Elena Vasquez watched her tactical display with growing horror as the Confederation fleet approached Proxima Centauri. 12,000 alien ships moved in perfect formation toward humanity's 400 defending vessels. All ships. This is Admiral Webb, came the voice over the comm. Remember, we're not here to win. We're here to learn. Study their weapons, their tactics, their weaknesses. Every second we survive gives Earth more time to prepare. Elena nodded to her crew aboard the destroyer Times Defiance *. They were outgunned 1,000 to 1. But they were still human. Weapons hot. All batteries target the closest enemy ship. The aliens opened fire first. Elena had expected lasers or missiles. Instead, beams of pure energy tore through space. Where they touched human ships, matter simply ceased to exist. No explosion, no wreckage. Just empty space where a ship and 300 crew members had been moments before. Holy God, whispered her weapons officer. They're erasing us. The human fleet fought back with everything they had. Railguns fired tungsten slugs at impossible speeds. Missile batteries launched nuclear-tipped warheads. Laser arrays focused their beams on enemy hulls. Nothing worked. The alien ships had shields that made the attacks bounce off, like rain on glass. Defiance *. This is Times Marathon *. We're taking heavy fire. Hull breaches on decks 4 through 7. Losing life support. Elena watched as the heavy cruiser Times, Marathon Times, was cut apart by alien weapons. Captain Morrison and his entire crew of 800 people. Gone. All remaining ships, withdraw to Rally Point Alpha. Admiral Webb ordered. His voice was calm, but Elena could hear the pain underneath. Of 400 human ships, only 37 made it out of the battle zone. The news reached Earth within hours. Proxima Centauri had fallen. The aliens broadcast their victory across all human communication channels. Admiral Kethvar appeared on every screen, his 4 eyes gleaming with satisfaction. As promised, the primitive mammals have tasted our power, he announced. This is what happens to species that refuse the Confederation's generosity. Surrender now, or watch as we destroy every human world, one by one. But the aliens had made their second mistake. They thought fear would break human spirits. Instead, it made them angry. Sarah Chen watched the broadcast from her new laboratory on Luna Station. The facility had been expanded overnight. Teams of scientists worked around the clock, analyzing every piece of data from the battle. "Doctor, we have the sensor readings from the engagement," reported Dr. Kim, her assistant. "The alien weapons use some form of quantum disintegration field. Our shields couldn't even slow them down." Sarah nodded, studying the data. "What about their ship movements? Their formation patterns? Perfectly coordinated. Every ship knew exactly where to be and when. No wasted motion, no redundant coverage. No flexibility either," Sarah observed. "Look at this. When Captain Harrison's squadron tried to flank them, the aliens didn't adapt their formation. They just overwhelmed the threat with firepower." She was beginning to understand something important about their enemy. Meanwhile, Admiral Webb was meeting with Earth's military leaders. The room was filled with generals, admirals, and corporate executives. All of them looked grim. "The situation is clear," Webb began. "We cannot match their technology or their numbers. In a straight fight, they will destroy us completely." General Martinez, head of Earth's ground forces, leaned forward. "Never." Webb's voice was steel. "But we need to change how we fight. These aliens have been winning wars the same way for thousands of years. Overwhelming force applied in predictable patterns. They've never faced an enemy that refuses to follow the rules." Over the next 2 weeks, the aliens continued their advance. Wolf 359 fell with the loss of the entire human colony. Tau Ceti was evacuated barely in time. Each victory was broadcast across the galaxy, showing other species what happened to those who defied the Confederation. But something was happening that the aliens didn't notice. Human ships weren't trying to win battles anymore. They were learning. Every engagement was recorded, analyzed, and shared. Human engineers worked day and night to understand alien technology. Pilots studied alien tactics until they could predict enemy movements. The breakthrough came at the Battle of Wolf 359. Captain Elena Vasquez found herself commanding the last human ship in the system. The Times, Defiance Times, had taken heavy damage. Her shields were down, her weapons were nearly depleted, and she was facing 3 alien destroyers. "Captain, we should withdraw," her first officer suggested. Elena looked at her tactical display. The alien ships were moving in their standard formation, perfectly coordinated and completely predictable. "No," she said quietly. "I have an idea. All power to engines. Ram the flagship." "Captain, that's suicide." "Maybe, but I'm betting these aliens have never seen anyone do something this crazy." The Times Defiance Times accelerated straight toward the lead alien ship. The aliens fired their disintegration beams, but Elena had calculated the approach perfectly. The ship threaded between the energy streams and slammed into the alien vessel's bridge at full speed. Both ships exploded in a ball of flame, but before she died, Elena heard something over the communication channels. The alien admiral's final transmission, broadcast to his fleet in confusion. Why didn't they surrender? The battle was clearly lost. This makes no tactical sense. Those words reached Earth along with the battle recordings. Sarah Chen played them over and over in her laboratory. "They don't understand us," she told Admiral Webb during their daily briefing. "To them, war is a mathematical equation. Superior technology plus superior numbers equals victory. When the math says they should win, the enemy surrenders. But we're not surrendering even when we should," Webb realized. More than that, We're not fighting to win individual battles. We're fighting to learn from every defeat. Each time they beat us, we understand them a little better, and they learn nothing new about us because we keep changing." Webb smiled grimly. "How long before we can match their technology? Our engineers have been reverse engineering their weapons from sensor data. Give us 6 months, and we'll have something. Give us a year, and we'll have something better than what they have." The aliens continued their advance, destroying human colonies and celebrating each victory. They divided human territory among themselves and made plans for harvesting Earth's resources, but they failed to notice the signs. Human ships were lasting longer in each battle. Human tactics were becoming more unpredictable, and human engineers were making impossible advances in technology, adapting and improving captured alien systems faster than the aliens had ever seen. Admiral Kethvar received a report that troubled him. His science officer, a creature called Zixtar from the Zephyrian Collective, delivered the news with clicking mandibles. "Admiral, the humans are not behaving according to standard invasion patterns. Most species show decreasing resistance over time. The humans show increasing effectiveness." Kethvar dismissed the concern with a wave of his 4 arms. "They are merely delaying the inevitable. No species has ever successfully resisted the Confederation. These mammals will be no different." But for the first time in his long military career, Admiral Kethvar felt something he had never experienced before: doubt. The humans weren't acting like any enemy he had ever faced. They fought battles they couldn't win, sacrificed ships for no apparent gain, and refused to surrender even when facing certain death. It made no sense, and that worried him more than he cared to admit. 6 months after the first alien attack, everything changed. Commander David Park crouched in the asteroid field near Vega System, watching the alien supply convoy through his ship's sensors. The Times, Ghost Runner Times, was barely a ship at all anymore. Human engineers had rebuilt it from captured alien technology, mining equipment, and pure desperation. "Contact bearing 27 Mark IV, whispered his sensor operator. "Lieutenant Nash. 1 heavy cruiser. 4 destroyers. 12 cargo vessels." Park smiled. The aliens thought they were safe here, deep in conquered territory. They had no idea that humans had spent the last 6 months learning to hunt in space the same way their ancestors had hunted mammoths on Earth. "Remember, we're not here to fight," Park told his crew. "We're here to take what we need and disappear. The moment they figure out we're here, we run." The Times Ghost Runner Times drifted closer, using the asteroids for cover. Human ships no longer tried to match alien technology. Instead, they did what humans did best. They improvised. The ship's hull was covered in stolen alien stealth plating. Its engines had been modified to run silent. Its weapons were a mixture of human railguns and alien energy cannons, powered by a reactor that no alien engineer would recognize. "Cargo Ship 3 is separating from the convoy," Nash reported. "Looks like a supply run to the mining station." "Perfect. Match its course and speed. We'll take it when it's alone." The plan worked exactly as practiced. The Times Ghost Runner Times appeared behind the alien cargo ship like a ghost from the void. A single electromagnetic pulse disabled the alien vessel's communications. Boarding pods attached to its hull. Within minutes, Park's Marines had secured the ship. But they weren't there for prisoners or destruction. They were there for technology. "Take everything," Park ordered. "Weapons, shield generators, computer cores, even the food if it's edible. Leave nothing useful." The aliens had made their third mistake. They thought war was about holding territory and winning battles. Humans understood that war was about resources and information. Back on Earth, the changes were impossible to ignore. Dr. Sarah Chen stood in a laboratory that would have seemed like magic 6 months ago. Alien technology covered every surface, but it had been changed, improved, and combined with human innovation in ways that hurt to look at. "Show me the latest results," she told Dr. Kim. "We've cracked their shield technology," Kim reported excitedly. "Not just copied it, improved it. Our new shields can stop their disintegration beams and adapt to new frequencies automatically." Sarah nodded. studying the data. What about weapons? Even better. We've combined their energy weapons with our railgun technology. The result is something that hits harder than either system alone. But the real breakthrough wasn't in any single piece of technology. It was in how humans approached the problem. Alien species developed technology in straight lines. Each improvement built on the last in predictable steps. It was efficient, but it was also slow and rigid. Humans took captured alien technology and broke all the rules. They combined incompatible systems, ignored safety protocols, and rebuilt everything from scratch. The results were often ugly, sometimes dangerous, but always innovative. Dr. Chen called Dr. Rodriguez from across the laboratory. "You need to see this." She walked over to find Rodriguez staring at a genetic analysis display. "I've been studying the biological samples from captured alien ships," he explained. "Look at this data." Sarah reviewed the information and felt her heart skip. They're all from high-gravity, resource-rich worlds. More than that, every Confederation species shows the same pattern. Efficient biology, specialized organs, perfect adaptation to their home environment. But also genetic rigidity. They don't adapt quickly to new conditions. The implications hit Sarah like a lightning bolt. They've never had to. Exactly. These species evolved in paradise. Stable climates, abundant resources, few predators. They became perfect for their worlds, but only their worlds. Sarah thought about Earth's history. Ice ages that came every few thousand years. Asteroid impacts that changed the climate overnight. Volcanic eruptions that blocked the sun for years. Plagues that killed half the population. Humans had evolved to survive anything. Meanwhile, the war was changing in ways the aliens didn't understand. Admiral Kethvar stood on his flagship's bridge, studying reports that made no sense. Human resistance was supposed to collapse as their colonies fell. Instead, it was getting stronger. "Sir," reported his intelligence officer, "human ships are appearing in systems we conquered months ago. They attack our supply lines and disappear before we can respond." "How many ships are we talking about?" "Unknown. They all look different. Our databases can't identify consistent ship classes or weapon signatures." Kethvar frowned. This violated everything he knew about military organization. "What do you mean they all look different?" "Each human ship appears to be unique, sir. Different hull configurations, different weapons, different capabilities. It's as if they're building new ships constantly and never using the same design twice." This was impossible. Military fleets required standardization. Common parts, common tactics, common training. No species could field an effective force using completely different ship designs. But somehow, the humans were doing exactly that. The truth would have horrified the aliens if they had understood it. Humanity wasn't building a military fleet. They were building a pack of hunters. Every human ship was designed for a specific mission by crews who knew they might not survive their next battle. Engineers threw out all conventional thinking and built vessels that could adapt to any situation. Stealth ships that could hide in plain sight. Fast attack boats that could outrun anything they couldn't outfight. Heavy assault vessels that carried enough firepower to threaten ships 10 times their size. And all of them crewed by humans who had grown up hearing stories about their ancestors. Humans who had survived ice ages and plagues and wars. Humans who knew that surrender wasn't an option because surrender meant extinction. The turning point came at the Battle of Kepler 442. Commander David Park had been promoted to admiral after his successful raids. Now, he commanded a fleet of 30 ships that looked like they had been built in different galaxies. The alien force guarding the system included 200 vessels. By all military logic, the humans should have withdrawn. Instead, Park divided his fleet into 6 groups and attacked from 6 different directions at once. "Admiral," called Captain Torres from the stealth destroyer × Shadow *. "Enemy formation is breaking apart. They're trying to respond to multiple threats." "Good," Park replied. "Hit their command ship with everything we have." The humans had learned something important about their enemies. The Confederation fleets were perfectly coordinated, but only when they could follow their standard formations. Faced with chaos and unpredictability, they became confused. The alien admiral tried to restore order, But human ships were everywhere. They appeared from behind asteroids, decloaked from empty space, and emerged from the system's gas giant where no ship should have been able to hide. Within an hour, the Confederation fleet was scattered and running. But the real victory wasn't the battle. It was what the humans captured. Admiral Park to all ships. Park broadcast. We have secured an intact alien dreadnought. Repeat. We have captured a Confederation capital ship. End quote. To Park, the news reached Earth within hours. For the first time since the war began, humans had taken a major alien vessel, with all its technology intact. Admiral Webb stood in his command center, reading the reports with satisfaction. Dr. Chen, how long to analyze their ship? Unrever. Give us a month, Sarah replied. But Admiral, I don't think analysis is the most important thing. What do you mean? We've captured their ship, but more importantly, we've proven something to the galaxy. Humans can't just defend themselves. They can win. Webb nodded slowly. And how do you think the Confederation will respond to that? Sarah smiled grimly. They're about to discover what happens when you back a persistence hunter into a corner. Across the galaxy, news of the battle spread. Other species that had been conquered by the Confederation began to whisper among themselves. Some started to wonder if the humans might actually win. And in a few systems on the edges of space, rebellions began to flicker to life. The aliens had made their fourth mistake. They thought fear would keep their subjects loyal. They had never considered that hope might be contagious. 18 months after the war began, Admiral Kethvar finally understood what fear felt like. He stood on the bridge of his flagship, staring at tactical displays that showed impossible things. Human ships were everywhere in the Tau Ceti system. Not just a few raiders, but an entire fleet. Ships that moved like nothing he had ever seen before. Sir, his sensor operator reported with trembling claws. Human vessels are decloaking throughout the system. Count is. Sir, I count over 600 ships. Kethvar felt his foreheart skip. 600 human ships meant they had not only rebuilt their entire fleet but doubled it. In less than 2 years. Impossible, he whispered. Our intelligence reports said they had fewer than 100 vessels remaining. The truth was worse than impossible. It was terrifying. Operation Prometheus had launched 3 months ago with a simple goal. Hunt down every Confederation fleet and destroy them. Admiral Marcus Webb had divided humanity's forces into strike groups that moved through space like wolves stalking prey. Confederation fleet, this is Admiral Webb of the Human Defense Force, came a voice over the communication channels. You wanted to see what humanity is capable of. Congratulations. You have our complete attention. Kethvar opened a channel to respond, but Webb cut him off. No negotiations, no surrender offers. You declared war on our species. You attacked our colonies. You killed our people. Now you learn why that was a mistake. The human fleet attacked from 12 directions at once. Kethvar watched in horror as his perfectly organized formation crumbled within minutes. Human ships moved like living creatures instead of machines. They adapted to every defensive move his fleet made. Sir, the humans are using some kind of new technology, his science officer reported. Their ships are coordinating without any detectable communications. It's as if they share a single mind. The officer was wrong, but not in the way he thought. Humans didn't share a single mind. They shared something much more dangerous. A common purpose and the ability to think like their enemy. Every human captain had studied Confederation tactics for months. They knew how alien fleets moved, how they responded to threats, how they tried to maintain formation, and they exploited every weakness. Captain Elena Martinez commanded the destroyer Time's Vengeance *. She had survived the first battle at Proxima Centauri by pure luck, and she had spent every day since then preparing for this moment. Enemy squadron moving to flank our starboard group, her tactical officer reported. Predicted, Martinez replied calmly. Execute Maneuver 7. The Times, Vengeance Times and its squadron suddenly changed direction, cutting across the alien formation at an angle that should have been suicide. But Martinez had calculated the timing perfectly. Her ships passed through the gaps between alien vessels before they could adjust their formation. "Fire all weapons," she ordered. The human squadron struck the alien fleet from inside their own formation. Confusion spread through the Confederation ranks as they found themselves shooting at each other trying to hit the human ships. This was happening all across the battlefield. Human captains who had learned to think like hunters were treating the alien fleet like a herd of prey. They didn't attack where the aliens were strongest. They attacked where the aliens couldn't adapt fast enough. Admiral Kethvar tried to restore order to his fleet, but the humans had learned something terrible about Confederation forces. They were perfect when everything went according to plan. But when chaos erupted, they couldn't adjust quickly enough. "All ships, withdraw to Rally Point Gamma," he finally ordered. But the humans had anticipated this too. "Sir," his navigator reported with panic in his voice. "Human ships are already at Rally Point Gamma, and Rally Point Delta, and Rally Point Echo. They're at all our fallback positions." For the first time in his 300-year military career, Admiral Kethvar realized he had been outthought, outmaneuvered, and trapped by an enemy he had dismissed as primitive. "How?" he demanded. The answer would have broken his spirit completely if he had known it. Dr. Sarah Chen had spent months studying captured Confederation data cores. She didn't just learn their technology, she learned how they thought. Every standard formation, every tactical response, every emergency procedure. Humans had become experts on their enemies, while the aliens knew nothing about humans except that they refused to surrender. "Dr. Chen to Admiral Webb," she called over the command channel. "Confirmation from the battlefield. The aliens are following tactical pattern Epsilon 7. They'll attempt to regroup at coordinates we've already identified." "Understood, Doctor. All strike groups, move to intercept." The Battle of Tau Ceti became a rout. Of the 200 ships in Admiral Kethvar's fleet, only 37 escaped to hyperspace. But the real victory wasn't the ships destroyed. It was what the battle proved to the galaxy. News of the Confederation's defeat spread faster than the survivors could carry it. On worlds that had been conquered decades ago, people began to whisper about the impossible. The humans had not only survived the Confederation's assault, they had won. On the planet Xerion Prime, the peaceful Ilari Republic held an emergency council meeting. "The reports are confirmed," announced Counselor Veltar with her melodic voice. "The humans have destroyed 3 major Confederation fleets in the past month. Their ships are now operating in what was considered secure Confederation space." "This changes everything," said another counselor. "If the humans can win, we must be careful," Veltar warned. "The Confederation has ruled for 3,000 years. But perhaps it is time to reconsider our arrangement." Similar conversations were happening across the galaxy. Species that had submitted to Confederation rule were beginning to ask dangerous questions. If humans could fight back, why couldn't they? The Confederation High Command met in emergency session on their home world of Dominion. "The situation is unacceptable," declared Supreme Leader Maktar of the Vortok Empire. "A single primitive species is threatening the stability of our entire civilization." "They're not primitive anymore," observed hive mind Zeklorn of the Zephyrian Collective. "Our analysis indicates they've advanced their technology by centuries in less than 2 years." "Impossible, nevertheless true. They don't just copy our technology. They improve it in ways our scientists consider chaotic." Director Quindal of the Hegemony brought up the tactical displays. "They're also changing their strategy. Initially, they fought defensively to protect their worlds. Now they're hunting our fleets across the galaxy. They cannot sustain this," Maktar insisted. "They lack the industrial capacity to replace their losses." Quindal highlighted recent intelligence reports. "Actually, sir, they appear to be building ships faster than we can destroy them. Their production methods are unconventional." The truth would have shattered Confederation confidence completely. Humanity wasn't building ships the way other species did. They weren't using massive orbital shipyards with standardized designs. Instead, every human colony, every asteroid mining station, every corporate facility had become a mini shipyard. Humans built ships like their ancestors had made tools, quickly, creatively, and with whatever materials were available. No two ships were identical, but all of them worked. Meanwhile, Admiral Webb was planning the next phase of Operation Prometheus. Dr. Chen, what's the status of our intelligence gathering? We've mapped the locations of every major Confederation fleet, Sarah reported. We've also identified their supply lines, command centers, and communication networks. Recommendations? Hit them everywhere at once. Don't give them time to adapt or regroup. Force them to defend so many targets that they can't defend any of them effectively. Webb nodded. How many ships do we have available? 1,200 combat-ready vessels, with more coming online every week. And crew? Sarah smiled grimly. Sir, we have more volunteers than we have ships. Every human who lost someone in the early battles wants to join the fight, and they're all asking for the most dangerous assignments. Webb understood. Humans had a saying about payback. The aliens had killed human civilians, destroyed human colonies, and treated humanity like an annoying pest to be exterminated. Now they were about to learn why you never corner a persistence hunter. Signal all strike groups, Webb ordered. Operation Prometheus enters Phase 2 in 72 hours. Target every Confederation installation within 50 light-years of Earth. The message went out to human fleets across the galaxy. Ships that had been built in cargo bays and asteroid mines. Crews that included teachers and miners, and farmers who had learned to fight. Veterans who had survived impossible battles and rookies who were eager to prove themselves, all of them united by a simple truth that the aliens had never understood. Humanity didn't fight wars to prove they were superior. They fought wars to make sure no one ever threatened their families again, and they were very, very good at it. The war ended not with a great battle, but with a single message broadcast across the galaxy. Dr. Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of the Time's indomitable Asterisk, humanity's flagship, as it entered orbit around Dominion, the Confederation's capital world. Behind her, a fleet of 800 human ships waited in perfect formation. The sight would have been impossible to imagine 2 years ago. Human vessels surrounding the galaxy's most powerful world, their weapons trained on the surface, their shields raised against any counterattack, but no attack came. The Confederation's remaining fleets had surrendered or fled. Their allies had abandoned them. Their subjects had risen in rebellion across dozens of worlds. Dr. Chen called Captain Rodriguez from the communications station. We're receiving surrender terms from the Confederation High Command. Sarah nodded but didn't look away from the planet below. Ignore them. Open a channel to all Confederation worlds. Channel open. Sarah stepped forward, knowing that her words would be heard on every planet in what had once been the galaxy's greatest empire. People of the galaxy, she began, her voice calm and clear. I am Dr. Sarah Chen of Earth, speaking for humanity and our allies. 24 months ago, the Galactic Confederation declared war on our species because they saw us as primitive mammals who refused to submit. The command center was silent, except for the hum of machinery. They failed to understand that humanity is not a species that became spacefaring despite our nature. We became spacefaring because of it. Every human child learns the history of our wars, our struggles, our failures, and our refusal to surrender. You chose to fight the one species in the galaxy that has spent 200,000 years learning how to survive anything. On planets across the galaxy, beings who had lived under Confederation rule for generations listened to words they had never thought they would hear. The Confederation High Command has offered their unconditional surrender. We accept. Cheers erupted in the command center, but Sarah raised her hand for silence. However, humanity did not fight this war to become conquerors. We fought to ensure that no species would ever again face what we faced. The galaxy will not trade one empire for another. Admiral Webb, listening from Earth, smiled at her words. This was why he had chosen Sarah, to deliver humanity's message. She understood that winning the war was only the beginning. Effective immediately. All Confederation subjugation laws are void. Every species has the right to govern themselves. Every world has the right to determine its own future. No civilization may force another to submit through threat of violence. The word spread across the galaxy faster than light itself. On Zerion Prime, the Alari Republic's council wept tears of joy. On 1,000 enslaved worlds, rebellions turned into celebrations. But Sarah wasn't finished. To those who served in the Confederation military, you are offered full pardons and the opportunity to join a new organization. The Galactic Alliance will be founded not on conquest, but on cooperation. Its purpose will be to ensure that conflicts between species are resolved through negotiation rather than war. On his flagship, Admiral Kethvar listened to the humans' words with amazement. He had expected revenge, enslavement, perhaps even extinction for his species. Instead, the humans were offering mercy to their enemies. To the leaders of the former Confederation, you will face trial for crimes against sentient beings. But these trials will be conducted fairly, with representation for the accused and justice tempered by understanding. Sarah paused, looking at the planet below where millions of beings waited to learn their fate. Humanity learned something important during this war. We discovered that we are not alone in the galaxy, and that brings us great joy. But we also learned that power without wisdom leads to tyranny, and that strength without mercy leads to cruelty. She thought of all the humans who had died in the war. Captain Elena Vasquez, who had sacrificed herself at Wolf 359. Commander Morrison and his crew on the Times Marathon Asterisk. Thousands of others who had given their lives not for conquest, but for the simple right to exist. The galaxy made a deadly mistake when it declared war on humanity. Not because we are the strongest species, or the most advanced, or the most ruthless. The mistake was in believing that might makes right, that the strong should rule the weak, that peace can be maintained through fear. Her words were being translated into hundreds of languages across thousands of worlds. Humanity offers a different path. We propose a galaxy where disputes are settled by negotiation or, if necessary, by single combat, rather than fleet battles. Where exploration and trade replace conquest and subjugation. Where every species contributes their unique gifts to the common good. The broadcast was picked up by species beyond the former Confederation's borders. News of humanity's victory and their surprising response spread to the far edges of the galaxy. This is our offer to the galaxy. Join us not as subjects, but as equals. Help us build something better than what existed before. Prove that intelligence and wisdom can triumph over brute force and fear. Sarah stepped back from the camera. The Galactic Alliance begins today. All species are welcome, but none are required. The choice, for the first time in 3,000 years, is yours. The transmission ended, but its effects rippled across the galaxy for years. 5 years later, Admiral Webb stood in the same observation deck on Luna Station where the war had begun. But everything had changed. Ships from dozens of species moved through the Sol system, no longer as conquerors or invaders, but as allies and trading partners. The Galactic Alliance had grown to include over 100 civilizations, each contributing their unique strengths to the common good. Admiral, called Dr. Chen from behind him. She now served as Earth's ambassador to the Alliance, helping to resolve disputes between species through discussion rather than warfare. Doctor, how did the negotiations with the Rim Confederacy go? Better than expected. They've agreed to join the Alliance, but they want assurances that their cultural practices will be respected. Webb nodded. Granted, as long as those practices don't involve conquering other species. Understood, Admiral. There's someone here to see you. Webb turned to find Admiral Kethvar waiting nearby. The former Confederation commander now served as humanity's cultural liaison, helping other species understand the lessons his people had learned the hard way. Admiral Webb, Kethvar said in his careful English, I've come to report on the integration of former Confederation fleets into the Alliance military. How are they adapting? Slowly, but successfully. The concept of fighting only when attacked rather than to expand territory is difficult for some to understand. But they're learning. Rees. All Rees-y. Webb smiled. What about you? Do you understand it now? Kethvar was quiet for a moment. I understand that humanity doesn't fight wars to prove they're superior. You fight wars to ensure no one has to fight wars. Exactly. Admiral, may I ask you something? Of course. During the war, why didn't you destroy us completely? You had the power. Your forces could have wiped out every Confederation world. Webb looked out at the peaceful ships moving through human space, representatives of species that had been enemies just a few years before, now working together to build something better. Because destruction is easy, Admiral. Any species with enough weapons can destroy their enemies. But building something better, creating lasting peace, ensuring that future generations never have to face what we faced, that's much harder. Kethvar nodded slowly. My people ruled through fear for 3,000 years. We thought it made us strong. But we were actually weak, weren't we? Not weak, Webb corrected. Just wrong. You confused control with leadership, conquest with strength, fear with respect. And now? Webb gestured to the ships outside. Now you're part of something larger. Your tactical expertise helps train alliance forces. Your scientific knowledge contributes to research projects. Your cultural perspective helps us understand other species. We serve rather than rule. And you're stronger for it. That evening, as Webb reviewed the daily reports, he came across a familiar entry. It was part of the curriculum now taught in schools across the galaxy. A required course called The Human War. The lesson plan was simple but profound. The day the galaxy declared war on humanity was the day the galaxy learned that some victories come at too high a price to celebrate. But it was also the day the galaxy learned that true strength comes not from the power to destroy, but from the wisdom to choose mercy. Webb smiled and closed the report. Outside his window, the stars that had once been silent were now full of voices. Species talking to each other, sharing discoveries, solving problems together. Humanity had fought a war to end all wars. And somehow, impossibly, it had actually worked. The galaxy had made a deadly mistake when it declared war on humanity. But it had also learned the most valuable lesson in its history. That peace was not the absence of conflict, but the presence of justice. And that sometimes, the most terrifying warriors make the wisest peacekeepers. The war was over. The real work had just begun.